Okay, this is a reaction video. This is from Cal McKinley, and it's 11 things not to do in Australia, must see before you go. Now, I would like to go to Australia. I've never been to Australia, so I really have no idea what I should and shouldn't do in Australia. I would think that, now I've been around Australians before. I remember during the World Cup in 2006 when I was in Germany, there was a bunch of Australians there, and I do remember, them when the revolving doors, um, it went the other opposite way than what they were used to going, and more than a few of them would go one way by natural instinct. But that being said, uh, uh, I've never been to Australia, so if I ever do go to Australia, I guess these are things I must see before I go. And so let's learn what I need to know before I go to Australia. And my Australian watchers, I know I have a few of them. Let me know if this is true or if this is a little bit over the top, please. I've never seen this video before, so let's find out what I should not do in Australia. I'm assuming this is a crocodile. I'm guessing it's a crocodile, and one of the things I'm assuming is I should not bother this animal. I shouldn't go up and try and pet it or get down with and try and do a selfie with it. I'm assuming that's one thing I shouldn't do. Maybe that's 12 things I'm not to do in Australia.
Australia is many things. It's a continent that makes up the sixth largest country in the world and is home to some of the most dangerous creatures on the planet. And no, I'm not just talking about Australians. With a little over 8.5 million people visiting each year, tourism is a
Are Australians dangerous? That's just
huge part of Australia's economy. That being said, there are a number of things to look out for when you're there. So let's get right into it. Number 1. Don't stray from the path.
Yeah, I guess this goes down to what I said earlier about our friend here who's on the screen right now. He said dangerous animals. That's pretty much all you really need to say as far as I'm concerned.
With over 66 different venomous species, which is the third largest concentration in the world, by the way. It's important to know where you are at all times. Now, this is especially true if you plan on trekking or camping in the outback. With things like the common brown snake, box jellyfish, and crocodiles, there's no shortage of dangerous animals here.
Well, since I don't plan, if I ever go to Australia, I don't think I ever plan to camp in the outback. I don't think I need to worry too much about this.
Important that you stay on the path when you're exploring. And that goes for warning signs as well. Because while it may seem funny to some people from different countries, here they're very real and should be taken seriously.
Yeah, I think so. Crocodiles, submerged objects, sharks, marine stingers, jellyfish, blue bottles. Wow. Recent crocodile sighting in the area. Don't go swimming. Warning, Achtung, attention. Is he gonna bite me, the koala there?
Number 2. Don't underestimate the cost. Australia is known for having one of the highest living costs in the world, and traveling there is no different. Now, of course, this is all subjective depending on where you go and where you're from, but it still might surprise you to hear that a beer costs around $9 Australian dollars, and a meal at a mid-range restaurant costs around 40. Now, all in all, if you're really trying to save money, you can get it down to around 100 Australian dollars per day. And I'll just throw that number out there as an average. But between transportation, food, and lodging, the prices can get a bit expensive, so it's important that you price out your trip accordingly.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I mean, it's not cheap to travel to Australia. Like I'm in the United States, it's not. If I were to go there, I've even looked it up a couple times. Just the airfare alone is in the 2,000 range, and I would have to leave from where I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and travel to California, and then of course you're going over the international date line, and it says plus 2 days. So let's say if I left on a Friday, then I actually don't get there until Sunday. So and probably not during the daytime either. It's really a long trip, and like I said, the international date line, so that adds something to it.
Number 3, and this is a short one. Don't say shrimp on the Barbie. Now, this phrase was popularized by a 1980s ad with Paul Hogan, who was later in Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah, Crocodile Dundee, but I had no intention of saying don't say shrimp on the Barbie since I can't eat shrimp since I'm allergic to shellfish, and so I have no intention of saying that.
It was sponsored by the Australian Tourism Commission to try to bring in international travelers. But this is absolutely not what an Australian would say. If they would even use that phrase at all, they would say prawn, not shrimp. So don't make it more annoying than it already is.
Fair enough. But, now that you say don't say something like that, I'm sure there's somebody, more than a few people, who would walk up and say shrimp on the Barbie just to see what an Australian would do.
Number 4, drinking in Australia. Now for this one, I'm mainly talking about major cities, specifically Sydney, so don't quote me on the rest of the country. But in Sydney, you can't get a beer after 1:30 in the morning, because they have something called a lockout law, which means no one is allowed in or out of bars past that point in time. And their last...
Well, since I don't drink, that's not going to affect me a whole lot. Yes, I do not partake in alcohol. In fact, I never really have. And nor would I be out past 1:30 in the morning. I'm an old man now, so I mean, back in the day, I might have been out till 2 or 3 in the morning, but not anymore. So, but if this is really for I don't know. Maybe there's some old people like me who like to go out and drink until all hours of the night, but that's just not me. But yeah, 1:30, that's reasonable.
This call is at 3 in the morning. And of course, don't drink and try and drive because they have one of the lowest blood alcohol content levels, 0.05, before you can be arrested. And last but not least, don't order Foster's beer. That's not an Australian thing, that's an American thing. Instead, try and order a bottle of Bundaberg. My Aussie friends will know why I'm laughing.
Okay, that's, LOL at this clip, by the way. But yeah, again, never been to Australia, but yeah, I never thought that Foster's was an Australian beer. Not that I would drink it in any way, but... Ah, look at that. That's a good place to store your beer.
Number 5, don't underestimate its size.
Well, yeah, it is a continent. Australia is not only a country, but it's a continent. And if you've seen maps of Australia, it's big on the coast where the cities are. And the quick one I would say, this is looking at a map, and large majority of if you go to the west is big wide open desert and quite a distance from between places. Okay, now I could be wrong on that. Let me know, please. I'm not perfect. But don't underestimate its size. I'm sure it's a pretty big place. It's like the 6th biggest country in the world. And I think if you took Australia and you put it over North America, I think North America is bigger, but it's still a pretty comparable size.
Australia is a country with about 25 million people.
And that's also what you say to the United States, too. Not trying to compare them, but if you've ever traveled to the United States, it's a big place. So if you come, I imagine if you go to Australia, say, I want to go to Sydney, I want to go to Melbourne, it doesn't work like that. You just pick an area and stay in that area. And then if you want to go to that other place, then just plan another trip.
And because it's a continent, it's made up of almost 7.6 million square kilometers. And despite the fact that the majority of its population is clustered around the coasts, in urban areas, it still means that as a tourist, it's going to take a long time to get from place to place. So it's important to take a look at exactly how long it's going to take you to complete your itinerary. Number 6, don't always tip. Now, unlike some countries, tipping isn't...
Now, again, this is the same thing that I've seen in European videos about tipping. When you're at a restaurant in the United States, I'm used to tipping. That's 15-20% is what we tip. This one is actually useful to me if I ever go to Australia, because I know what to do in Europe, but I've never been to Australia, so I'm not sure what the tipping culture is, but this is a good one. Don't always tip.
Required in Australia. And that's mainly because their minimum wage is the highest in the world, at around $18.93 an hour. Now, in places like the US, waitstaff require tips to earn a living wage, because the national minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Now, if you have great service, for sure you should tip the person. All I'm saying is you won't be scorned like in the US if you don't.
Well, you're not necessarily scorned in the United States. And keep in mind, you don't have to tip in the United States. It's just something that's expected of you, and it's something that you just do. Because if you get bad service, I'll give you an example. Last night, my family went to a restaurant, and my brother's order never came out. It eventually came out, but we believe that the server didn't punch his information in. And she came out and gave the story that they were backed up on what he ordered, and we were all done and literally had our doggy bags or our take home stuff we didn't finish on our plates that we put in our we had take home boxes before he actually got served. He actually got his meal, and my mom asked my brother, do you want to complain? And his response was, look, if I complain, or I ask to speak to a manager, or I make us think about this, I'm still in the same boat that I'm at. I'm still waiting for my food. The only thing I can do is just sit there and wait for it, and then respond later. Now, we did tip, okay, but if you get bad service or somebody treats you poorly, okay, it's not a law that if I don't tip at the restaurant that something bad is going to happen to me, okay. So it's encouraged. It's something that if you get great service, and my girlfriend and I were talking about it on the way back home. How was this? Was this waitress taught what to do in that situation? Because I would have thought that the man, she and I both thought this. The manager should have come over to the table. She should have told the manager what happened. He or she could have come over to the table and he maybe said, "Hey, sorry, I'm going to take X amount of dollars off your bill. I'm going to compliment whatever to make it right." But that never happened. And my dad, who was taking us all out, got the bill. Everything was on there, full price. So, but this is good to know that you don't always have to tip.
Number 7, don't rely on public transport. Now, because
okay, and that's another good thing, because in Europe, a lot of people rely on public transport. When I was in Germany, we relied on public transport. In the United States, you really don't rely on public transport. You usually, if I go out someplace where I don't know anybody, like I did last year out to Wyoming and South Dakota and Montana, we rented a car.
Australia is so big and so spread out, public transport is difficult to find outside major cities. It's not like Europe where you can take a train to a small town, hop off, and then hop onto another train to another small town. Australia is just too big for that to be feasible. So you're better off finding other ways to get around.
But yeah, if you stay in the city, if you stay in the big city, then you probably would have the Uber. Same thing, think of Ubers, the taxis, the trains. Like in New York City and DC, even in Los Angeles, they have a train system there, but in Chicago. Yeah, that's good to know.
Number 8, don't talk about immigration. Now, forgive me if I have to generalize.
Well, that's actually kind of, I don't know that I would go into, or start a conversation with an Australian and say, you know what? I'd really like to talk about immigration. Okay, now, I suppose you can always say, I was thinking of moving here, but, I don't know that I would ever bring that up as a conversations piece.
A bit in order to get the point across. But for the most part, many Australians dislike the way that the government handles immigration, whether they're anti-immigration or whether they're disgusted by the way the government handles refugees. Of course, there's all the people in between. But the bottom line is that immigration is a big deal in Australia, and it's easier to avoid the topic.
Sounds like the United States.
Number 9. Don't take anything personally. Now, Australians always seem to be joking around, and insults are one of the ways that they do that. But don't make the mistake of thinking they mean anything by it. There's a funny saying where you know that an Australian doesn't like you if they don't insult you, because it means that they actually think there's something wrong with you and that it'll offend you. Go figure. So take everything with a grain of salt.
That's good to know. I mean, I don't know that I'm going to go, if I ever go to Australia, well, like, that means if I go to Australia and I'm sitting around, they say, hey, you start insulting me, I guess I can give it back and we can have a conversation that way. I can insult everybody too. So, hey, okay. And let me know about that. I say, is that what you guys do? Walk up to each other and start insulting each other? It's good to know.
Number 10. Don't be afraid to say hello. Australians have a pretty well-deserved reputation.
And that's the thing in the United States. Usually when you meet eye contact, in fact, I made eye contact with somebody yesterday morning who I'd never seen before in my life. And he said hi. I said hi right back. It was, I got out of my car. He was just on a walk and, hey, how you doing? Yeah, it's good. Again, that's not too dissimilar from the United States.
For being laid back. And like I was talking about before with the kidding around, they're good at taking things in stride, which makes it easy as a tourist to make friends. And talking to people is a must.
That looks like an Australian rules football match, if I'm not mistaken. We used to watch those on ESPN, and I'm not going to do the accent because I can't do the accent. But I remember he takes the mark, and they're doing this stuff and one behind. And, it was fun to watch. I don't get to see it so much anymore.
Last but not least, number 11. Make sure you enjoy Australia. That's
one of those things that actually goes without saying. If you travel anywhere, make sure you enjoy it. Make sure it's not like the worst experience you ever had. Nobody likes a bad trip. And I'm assuming, and without watching the rest of this video, what he's saying is when you get there, enjoy all the perks and all the amenities that it has to offer, all the things that you can do there. Because when you go someplace, you don't, my rule is, I have very few rules that I have, but one of them is if I go to a place that I've never been before, or if I go to some place that don't go to a restaurant that you can go to where I'm at. Like, don't go to McDonald's. Well, I might go to a McDonald's in Australia to see what the differences are on the menu, but don't go to McDonald's. Don't go to a restaurant that I can always go back at home. Experience new things. Go to the mom and pop places. Go to and see things that you don't normally see, and that's what makes it exciting when you go to a new place.
It's such a cool place with so many fun and interesting people, and there's so much to do there. It's important to keep in mind that these are all general guidelines and tips that I find out while I was there, and I'm sure you'll have a fantastic time while you're there.
Well, that's one thing that I know my girlfriend will never do, and that's jump out of an airplane, even with a parachute on a tandem jump. But you can actually do that where I'm at. But yes, nice to know. That looks like a pretty interesting thing to do. Yeah, there's 11 things not to do in Australia, must see before you go, and I think a lot of the stuff is common sense, but a lot of the stuff is about the tipping culture. Australians like to insult you and so forth, but don't take it seriously. So like I said, they insult me, I can insult them right back. But hey, this was good. Please click like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching this video. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.